If you look at the current market, the prices for fragrances are going absolutely crazy. What used to be like 50 bucks is now $100 to $500 on average, with some bottles going for thousands of dollars, and the most expensive fragrance bottle ever sold was $200K for a single bottle. So that begs the question then, is my almost $600 bottle of Creed's Royal Oud that much better smelling than my $12 bottle of Nautica Voyage? And as someone who has bought over hundreds of bottles of fragrances, spent $10K of just good smelling liquid on my own dollars, and for this video specifically, I had people smell test my most expensive bottle and my cheapest bottle of fragrance to tell me which one they like better, I feel like I'm in a unique position to answer this question. Is expensive fragrance worth it? And in this video, we're gonna do a fun little deep dive and answer 5 questions. What is fragrance? How is it made? Then we're gonna get into our little scent test that I talked about where I asked the common nose which one they like better. We're gonna talk about niche versus designer fragrances, packaging, what goes into that. And then lastly, we're gonna talk about marketing and expectations. And at the end of this, I'm gonna tell you this exact question to the answer. Is expensive fragrance worth it? And I'm gonna give you my personal take on what I believe. And just because I wanna do something nice for you all, I'm gonna do a little giveaway. I haven't done one of these before, but I'm gonna give away my Creed's Millésime Impérial bottle to one lucky winner. This is a $470 bottle. This is not a joke. And the way to enter the giveaway is subscribe, hit the like button, and watch the whole video, because at the end of the video, I'm going to ask you guys a question to answer in the comments. So just do that, and I'll privately DM you a randomly chosen winner for who will win this 470 bottle Creed Millésime Impérial, which is absolutely a stunning freaking fragrance. But enough about all that. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video about why are you here, and get into number 1, which is how are fragrances made? So when you start looking at something to buy and it's really expensive, right? Our natural instinct goes to, what is it made out of that makes it so expensive? What are the ingredients or the components that make it what it is? And that's a fair question to ask in fragrances as well. So the main ingredients in a fragrance are alcohol, which is the carrier, and also the stabilizer to a certain extent, water, a good amount of water. And then there's gonna be your synthetics. So this is the colors, the additives, this is the synthetic components that make the synthetic smells. And then lastly, you have the perfume oils. This is what the fragrance content is usually mostly composed of. And you would be safe to assume that ingredient-wise, there are a whole variety of ingredients. When you have the chemical synthetic stuff, that shit's like pennies. But then you have other stuff like oud or gaiac wood, which is $5,000 for 1 kilogram. And then you have ambergris, which is literally whale puke. I don't know how the hell someone discovered this, but there are these big blocks of whale puke that are floating around the ocean. And those go for $10,000 for 1 kilogram, which is actually in Creed Aventus, which is one of the most expensive fragrances and the most highly sought after fragrance, if someone wants to say.
In my research, some sources say this is even more valuable than gold.
So yes, you'd be safe to assume that these ingredients, when they're in certain fragrances, they do increase the price. But that is not entirely the case for fragrances like it is for something else. There's a big component to play here, which is that last component, that perfume oil, that fragrance concentration. You may have not noticed this on typical bottles, but every single fragrance has a certain level of fragrance concentration. So there's 4 categories. There's eau de cologne, which has 2 to 4% of that fragrance concentration, what actually makes it the smelling component. The rest of it's just water, additives, chemicals, and yeah, just alcohol and shit, right? So there's eau de cologne, and that is so popular actually that people just say cologne sometimes as a synonym for fragrance. And for men's fragrances specifically, they'll say cologne. Then there's eau de toilette, which is around 5 to 15% fragrance concentration. This is your typical designer fragrances. This is my Dior Sauvage and a few other ones here. And then from there, you have eau de parfum. Eau de parfum has a higher oil concentration, around like 15 to 20, 25%. And then 25 to 40%, I want to say, is parfum, which is the highest. This is the heavy hitters. These have the most highest fragrance oil concentration. And you'll see here, for example, on my Tom Ford bottle, once the camera focuses, it will say here at the bottom, eau de parfum. So yeah, typically these more expensive fragrances, since they have more oil concentrations, they will be more, they'll cost more. So yes, the ingredients do matter to a certain extent, but you can have oud scent in a eau de toilette, which would be not that high concentration, so still be kind of cheaper compared to oud in eau de parfum, or maybe just an eau de parfum scent on its own because it has higher oil concentration. And the main benefit to which concentration you have in the oil concentrations does have some slight difference in output. For example, fragrances which are eau de toilette, which have, or eau de cologne, they tend to have more of a synthetic smell. People fragrance purists will say higher oil concentration, fragrance concentrations. Well, it's the real stuff, it's the natural shit, right? So people will say it smells deeper or more complex. And people will even say that it lasts longer on the skin because it's oils. They're real oils and they're more natural. So they tend to work better with the body chemistry and all that sort of stuff. Though I will say that technology has gotten really good and the synthetic scents do smell fantastic and they do last a long time. There's still something to say about the real shit, right? Like the real natural stuff. And I think this debate goes for a lot of other things in society. Do you want fast fashion or handmade tailoring or whatever that is? But there is that component to fragrances as well. And it is designated on every single fragrance. So for this moment, I wanted to do the smell test that I was talking about where I take an Eau de Toilette cheapy fragrance against the Eau de Parfum high oil concentration, one of my expensive fragrances and have someone smell them. So to the common nose. So with editing magic, I'm gonna clap my hands here and I'll see you on the other side. We're gonna do a quick smell test to see if the common nose can figure out the difference between a super expensive scent, a $495 one specifically, this is Creed Aventus, or a $25 scent, Club de Nuit. And I'm picking these two scents on purpose because I feel like if I picked, because the price actually would, I mean, I'm trying to see which one people like more, right? But if I used a really bubblegum sweet scent for one, and then like a leathery scent for another, then it just comes down to personal preference. But I wanted to take two scents, which are kind of in the same vein. People say that Club de Nuit is a flanker or a dupe of Creed Aventus. And because they're very similar smelling, now we're almost just going down to the ingredients, the quality, the smell. Because the reason why this is so expensive, according to Creed and niche enthusiasts and artists, besides branding marketing, is the craft and the hard and the handiwork and the creativity and the ingredients. They use ambergris and stuff, right? Which is like whale puke, which is one of the most expensive ingredients for fragrances. 25 bucks. You can probably tell this probably just water and chemicals, right? So let's see if the common nose can tell a difference. So on my right hand here, I sprayed Creed Aventus. And on my left hand over here, which is behind the camera, what I'm holding the camera with is Club de Nuit. And I sprayed it a few hours ago, so it's not the initial burst of scent. This is the little dry down. So this is what the scent normally would smell like if you yourself were wearing it after a few hours. But yeah, let's see how this works. So over here we have my fiance here. This is Ashima. This is my brother's girlfriend. This is Anshul. Let's do the initial taste test, the smell test, shall we? All right, so remember, this is the right hand. Okay, and this is the left hand. Okay, now I'll give you the mic. What are your initial thoughts? Which one do you like more, right or left?
Wait, you're right or?
But this, like, whatever.
That's the right.
This
okay.
one or
the left.
Or this one. Yeah.
Can I smell it again?
Okay.
I think I like the right one more.
Okay, so just to be exact, you like the right hand one, so the one with like this one over here.
Yeah, I like that one.
Do you know why? Do you know why you like it more?
I just feel like it's like stronger and manly, and then the left one is more subtle and it's not as bold.
Interesting. Okay. Don't they smell kind of similar to you though?
A little bit, but then the right one is definitely more bold, and that would catch more of my attention.
Got it. Okay. And this is Chanel, by the way. Chanel, I'll give you, if only you could speak, I could give you a taste test, smell test. I keep saying taste test. All right, Anshul, we will do the test with you now. Say hello to the super fans. Okay. So here's right hand. All right. Now we're gonna do left hand. Do you need it again?
No, I think I got it. I'll go with right
Right.
as well, yeah.
Why do you like the right one more? Is to give me something a bit more.
I think it's more masculine, like sexy, and smells expensive.
Okay. Very interesting comment. Don't they both smell similar though? Why did you pick the right one over the left one? And why does it smell more expensive to you?
Okay. Yeah, they both smell a little similar, but the right one is more bold, like Ashima said. More like vibrant, louder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you feel like even though they smell similar, the right one just has more depth.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. The video actually went surprisingly, not expecting like I was like I thought they were gonna say they couldn't tell the difference, or they thought one was better than the other. And like, I did realize that there was such a nuance to the fact that Creed is higher oil concentration and smells a little differently. And I think they picked up on that, right? Now, the difference is that since it was on my skin, they could probably even see that it blended well, which is why they're saying it's bold and it smelled a little deeper. I think one of the girls always said it smelled more expensive, and that is something that does come across sometimes when you have a higher oil concentration. So designer fragrances are exactly what you're thinking about. They're the big designer houses that sell everything, including fragrances. So this is your Chanel, this is your Prada, this can even be your Armani, your YSL, your Gucci, your Dior, any of these big houses that sell a lot of other shit besides just fragrances. We call them designer fragrances. And what they do is they have economies of scale, so they're able to sell a cheaper fragrance at a lower cost point, and they're usually eau de toilettes or sometimes eau de parfums as well these days, but they're usually on that other end. So the way designer fragrance is created is there's mainly 5 big houses. That's it. There's literally 5 houses that make the fragrances for these designer brands. There's, I think it's called Fermich and Givaudan. And those are the 2 biggest ones. There's IFF as well, I think. Well, they're the big ones. And all these companies do is they spend millions and millions of dollars, and they have a massive team of people that just figure out what's the trendiest scent, what's the most popular scent DNA. And the reason why they need it is because these designer fragrances are taking a massive gamble. Since they're producing at economies of scale and their production costs are lower because they have so much manufacturing power, they're making millions of bottles at a time. So when they decide to launch and release a fragrance, it isn't just like testing the market. They're like bulldozing the market. So when they have these big companies like Givaudan and Fermeric, they have they're down to a science about what kind of scents people will like and what will sell in the market well. The trade-off is that they generally smell not that unique. They don't smell that, I mean, they smell great. And to be honest, they actually smell very pleasant, and most people like them, and they'll get a lot of compliments because that is exactly what people want in most fragrances. And that's what these fragrance scientists, if you want to call them, and companies are spamming away because they know exactly how to do that. And this comes at a cheaper price point, but generally this is what we see in the market, right? Now where niche fragrances come in, and this is where you have your like Creeds, Parfums de Marly is another great brand. Guerlain, which I don't know if it's exactly niche anymore. I mean, you even have your Tom Ford to a certain extent. I mean, they do make a bunch of other shit, but they have a private label, which is fragrance enhanced. There's Amouage. There's a couple other houses, right? All they kind of do is make fragrances. Now, so there's the designer category, right? They sell with economies of scale, mass-produced, high popularity fragrances that most people will like at a cheaper cost. And then niche fragrances where they compete with these brands because they can't compete at cost, is they have the most unique smelling scents. And that is the competitive advantage of a niche fragrance house. So that's why most niche fragrances you will see will be in the eau de parfum or parfum category because they have higher oil concentrations. They are more about the craft, and they're more about the perfumery that's involved in order to make the fragrance happen. And that is why they're able to charge a higher price tag, because they're offering something totally unique that doesn't really exist on the market. So this brings us to our third topic. What does packaging play in terms of this whole fragrance operation? So the reason I wanted to bring up designer fragrances and then niche fragrances is because they both have different strategies for when it comes to packaging. Since these companies, these designer companies, have so much money and manpower behind them, and they're making so many bottles, they're able to command specialized molds just for their fragrances. So they're able to get some very crazy, unique looking molds that these smaller niche fragrance houses can't, which is why you'll see as a marketing tool sometimes, that's how these designer brands compete. This is Carolina Herrera's Lightning bottle, which is Bad Boy, which is a fucking crazy bottle. I mean, imagine sitting that. One of my other favorite bottles is Victor Bral's Spice Bomb over here, Spice Bomb Extreme. It's literally in the shape of a grenade because it's like a bomb, if you get that. So in order to split it, you have to unplug it, which is kind of a sick thing to do. And besides that, I mean, dude, I think Paco Rabanne has this one called Phantom, which is literally a goat. It's like a platinum robot that you can spray cologne out of. It's absolutely absurd. It's crazy, right? But then you see something as simple as Creed, right? Or even Tom Ford to a certain extent, but Creed or Parfums de Marly, nothing home to really write about, but they're just simple bottles. And that's what they have to do, because since they can't command that much money in order to create a custom mold sometimes, their packaging is kind of meh, it's whatever. And you'll see that across the board kind of in terms of niche fragrances versus designer fragrances. Designer fragrances have that loud marketing. I mean, for Phantom, they had like a robot in the ad and stuff, and you know, designer fragrances will have celebrities, and they'll have like Austin Butler and the, you know, like Brad Pitt and George Clooney, like some of these big time celebrities, and these niche fragrance houses don't. They're concentrated on the juice, right? So packaging, while it does play a factor into it, I would say it's just a couple of bucks maybe for the niche fragrances, which ironically are the way more expensive ones, versus for designer fragrances, they cost around the same, but they're able to do cooler, more interesting shit with them, which is why people also like those, and that's what catches your eye when you're at a department store. So the University of Bordeaux did this experiment where they brought a bunch of experts in wine and they had them all sit and they had them try different wines, an expensive wine, a cheap wine, white wines, red wines. And before each wine, they told them how much it costed and how expensive it was and where it's from. And these are experts, by the way, right? So they're professional sommeliers. With each one, when they said this is a cheap wine, they'd be like, oh yeah, this is probably this, and they had details, not like they just had a thought. They're like, yeah, this, I can tell you these grapes are from this one. When they sold an expensive one, they're like, wow, yeah, I know the grapes are from this one. It has that dirt and that taste in it, that woody opening and stuff. What's funny is that they all were fooled because they were all the same wine. And these experts were able to craft a narrative around these wines without even realizing that the same wine. Even the white wines were actually colored with red and they couldn't even tell the difference. They took this a step further in Caltech where they took the similar type study where they had a bunch of same wine, but they said cheap ones, expensive ones, whatever wines. But this time they plugged up people on the brain and they were able to see on the monitors what would happen. And literally from a neuro standpoint, when someone said this was an expensive wine, and this is an important word, the expectation changed and it lit up a part of the brain that quite literally told the brain, that person, that this wine was better. So it's not even in our inherent nature that, oh, marketing gets us, right? One of my favorite quotes by Don Draper from Mad Men, he says that marketing, the foundation of marketing is to help people realize their aspirations. And we all love intrinsically to think that we will deny the marketing appeals, and we think that this is the reason why, like, oh, like, I'll just reject that notion. I don't need a Rolex, I have a time watch. I don't need a Ferrari, I have a Jeep. I don't need a business class or first class or whatever. Like, I can just get from point A to point B into economy. But our mind is wired in a way that status works too. But it quite literally, when we have an expectation that something's gonna be better, our brain works differently for that moment. And this is also no surprise or shock when it comes to fragrances, or when it comes to art, or when it comes to clothing, or when it comes to whatever. So this marketing and expectation, yes, on one hand you have like Chris Hemsworth promoting something, right? Like Dolce & Gabbana or some type of fragrance like that. But on the other hand, by outpricing themselves, and there's really no master who has done this than Creed and Mr. Tom Ford themselves. I mean, they have literally, maybe not Tom Ford as much because they're maybe a bigger play, but still, like, it's a motherfucking Tom Ford when you wear something like that, right? And this expectation, this marketing of Creed, that what they've done is that they're just so good that they have to price themselves starting at $400, $500, is a masterclass in expectation. Now, there is something to say about the fact that when we do that smell test, that maybe other person can't tell the difference, right? But here's where the money comes in and why it's expensive and why it might be worth it. When you wear a Tom Ford, when you wear a Creed, when you wear a Parfum Muller, when you wear a $400 or $500 fragrance, you move and walk and breathe through life differently. Suddenly it doesn't like, so the expensiveness is making you carry yourself in a different way. What's funny is this fucking Versace Eros, which is like 25 bucks that you got for Christmas or something from your parents, probably will get you more compliments than Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille. And I can actually tell you that that is most likely, if I put them on like pieces of paper, right? And I have you try both of them, you will probably get more compliments from this versus Tom Ford. But what is interesting is that because you're wearing a Tom Ford, you suddenly are going to carry yourself differently in a way that gets you more compliments, even though Versace Eros wouldn't. Does it kind of make sense? People who get compliments on their fragrances, not always just about the fragrances, it's about the swag and the way they walk and move and carry themselves. And that if you wear Tom Ford, it might come for you more easily than those Versace Eros. So there is a component to this marketing expectation thing that we talk about, like, oh yes, like they just make themselves really expensive and we pay the pink tax and this and that. Like there's all that whole debate there. And I agree, there is a whole component to that as well. But there is also something to say that the benefit of wearing expensive fragrances, like imagine you're going on a first date with someone, right? If you wear Tom Ford, you wear motherfucking Tom Ford, you're gonna feel like a boss when you're at that date. You wear a cheap dupe flanker of a fragrance, you're gonna think you smell good and you're gonna see a compliment, but it's not the same feeling as wearing a real Rolex versus wearing a fake Rolex. So the other people may not be able to tell the difference, but you'll know. And because of that, subliminally, you'll send the message or the confidence boost or the confidence lack thereof of what you're wearing. So yes, there's the market point, the expectation component, but there's also this added benefit to wearing something like this that makes you, like it levels you up in a certain way and it makes you feel better, which is why these expensive fragrances, all these influencers constantly keep saying, oh, buy Creed and buy this because it makes you get more compliments. It's probably because it does make them get more compliments, but not because what's the juice that's inside of it, but it's because it makes the person capable of getting more compliments because of the way it makes them feel. So now that we understand what makes a fragrance, the question is, does it justify the $500, $1,000, or even more dollar price tag? Does it smell that much better? Yes, if we include marketing, we include virtue signaling, there's a part of the glamorous packaging that is included in all this conversation as well. But does it justify the price? And here's my take. There's two types of people with two different answers what this is for. The first one is if you wear fragrances for compliments, and the second one is you wear fragrance because you love it. If you fall into the first camp where you wear fragrances because you want compliments, then my answer is no. You do not need an expensive fragrance whatsoever. I have many videos on this channel actually talking about fragrances $50 or under that are called compliment gods and compliment bees, and they're head turners or whatever you want to call them. So you absolutely do not need an expensive fragrance to get compliments. If anything, like we talked about, these fragrances, my Dior Sauvage, as much as I like to spend money on all these expensive fragrances, Dior Sauvage is still my most complimented, one of my most complimented fragrances of all time, which is literally absurd because it's just a fresh and clean masculine scent. There's nothing special, nothing unique about it, but people love it. And that's what Givaudan, and that's what Femmerique, that's what these $1 million operations do, is they find these fragrance notes that people absolutely will fall in love with, that are trendy, and they spam that consistently over and over and over again because they know that 90% of the population likes this stuff. The way I think about it, if you're in the first camp, is that once again, 90% of people don't have enough refined of a palate to even appreciate the nicer things or the different things. For example, like we talked about wine earlier, or whiskey. These people who are enthusiasts, they can't tell they can't maybe tell the difference between $100, $200 wine. But you and I for sure can't, dude. I've been to so many Michelin-star restaurants. I've been to like 15, 20 Michelin-star restaurants. At this point, I travel a lot. I live in New York. It is what it is. Like, shoot me, right? But I can tell you, bro, sometimes there are many moments where I drop $300 on a dinner and I'm like, Domino's fucking slaps. or Taco Bell actually hits harder and is more satisfying than this Michelin-star dinner I just spend a lot of money at. So most people can't appreciate when you even have these ambergris and oud and gaiac wood and coconut nectar type ingredients, because 90% of people like the same shit, a fresh and clean masculine scent for most people. However, if you're part of Camp 2 and you wear a fragrance because you love it.
I love lilies. The scent of lilies is so strong, so powerful, that actually when I travel, I love to have white lilies in my hotel room.
That's where things get a little tough to decide, because at the end of the day, fragrance is art then, and art is subjective. You and I have seen totally memes about a fragrance being super expensive and it's smelling like dog shit to someone else, right? Like that's a very common thing. A more common thing is art. And there's this picture, I swear to God, it's called the Black Square. Look it up, it's literally called the Black Square. It looks like a toddler made it. It's literally a fucking white, like, frame with a black square, and it sold for $60 million. So when experience of a commodity becomes subjective, the price is off the charts. You don't know what's gonna cost. So in that situations, when you like or love a scent, it could cost $20 and it can cost $600. So it's really tough then to determine what is the right price. So and what's funny is, yeah, like I said earlier, there's many fragrances which, like, to you might smell like heaven and it's cost $600 and you're like, yeah, hell yeah, that's worth it. But to your own family or friend, you smell like absolute trash. So that's where it gets a little different than to give you is expensive fragrance worth it, because it might absolutely be worth it to you. That this might remind you of a moment in time. This might be significant of you. This might make you emotional. This might make you think, like, this might make you, like, hell dude, like, art can make you feel all types of ways, right? So in that case, I would say that it's really tough to put a price tag on it. As someone who owns very expensive fragrances and I wear those, but I also own very cheap fragrances and I wear those as well, what do I think? I think there's a value priced type of fragrance, meaning you can have the best of both worlds, where I would say this: your fragrance should cost somewhere between $50 to $125. Let's say $125, because you're getting the added benefit that it's more likely a higher concentration of perfume oil, which means that it's an eau de parfum or parfum even. And once again, this is not to say eau de toilettes are bad, but this is why it's called value price. It's because at least when you spend more money, you're getting more bang for your buck, meaning you're at least getting more oil concentration. So you're getting more of the natural stuff. Now, whether it makes a big impact or not on the output, it may not make a difference, but sometimes it does. And that's why I think it's worth it. Now, when it comes to this $150 and above price range, then you're getting into the more art category and the art territory. And in those situations, I think then it's fully subjective, man. It's whatever your taste goes, because at that point, it's not about what's in the bottle. It's more about what you think about what's in the bottle. And at that point, I can't even tell you what the price is, because you, depending on who you are, might have a completely different price range than someone else. And that's it, guys. If you found value in this video, once again, go hit that subscribe button and give me one of these thumbs up. It definitely gives me a boost and helps me out. And if you are here because you're one of those people who still wants to enter the giveaway for Millésime Impérial Creed, the $470 bottle, then here is the question I want you to answer in the comments below. First of all, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like this video, and then answer this question: what is your favorite fragrance? How much did it cost? And is it worth it to you? Let us know, let the community know. Within the next week, I will pick on random one of the comments, and I'll send you a private DM to tell you if you won this or not. And I'll ship it to you wherever you are in the world, man. As long as USPS ships it, the United States Postal Service ships it, I'll ship it to you, and I'll take that burden on me.